A very good morning to you. It is Monday morning. If I've got the timing right, then you should probably be on the train or in the car or somehow heading to work, and you are listening to the Public Relations Podcast. A very good morning to you, and I hope this week is going to be the usual. It's going to be a fantastic PR week for you. So what's in the podcast this week? Well, I've got 3 diary dates for you, all on the same day in May. I've got an update on what's going to happen next with the Public Relations Podcast. Thank you so much for all your feedback and what you want done with this show. It's going to become a lot more interactive. I will explain about that in just a few moments' time. What can we all learn about promoting our organisations from one of the world's best influencers too? I've got a bunch of ideas on that from one particular Instagram influencer, how we can interpret that and use that for our organisations. And also I've got a light-hearted item on how William Shakespeare used PR to become world famous. If you're new to the Public Relations Podcast newsletter, then a huge welcome to you. My name is Richard Midson. I've been in the comms business for 25 years now, doing it just about everything from journalism, news editor. I've done public relations at a European political level. I've been a partner in a social media firm. I've done tech. I've done all kinds of things. So a whole load of different things. But my main thing is to try and help you in your organization where you're short on time and resources, aren't we always, to give you some ideas that will be able to lift up your efforts and give you some inspiration at the start of each week in this podcast. Thank you also, by the way, to everyone that's been sharing the link to the newsletter. If you don't know the difference, the podcast is kind of the inspiration. It's the overview of what's going on, while the newsletter has got all the details, all the tutorials, all the examples and pictures to illustrate things as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. If you don't have the details for that, it's on the website at thepublicrelationspodcast.com, thepublicrelationspodcast.com. Let's get started. And the first thing I want to talk about actually is the future of this show. I've had a lot of feedback, which has been absolutely fantastic from the people that subscribe to the newsletter. Issue 1, there's too much stuff. Okay, one of the things which came up was the fact that there's a lot of great ideas in this show, but they're just too easily put in the inbox and forgotten about. This project, frankly, is completely pointless if we don't achieve something together. So instead of providing so many ideas from next week, I'm going to focus on fewer ideas and actually do them with you. So I'm going to be doing them myself and inviting you to join me on social media so that we can actually do these things together. Lack of time comes into this as well. People saying that they haven't got enough time. Well, what I'm going to try and do is break these projects up into like 3 to 5 hour sections that you can do across a week. Also, you were saying about aiming higher. Yep. Okay, I get it. You want the really juicy stuff. You know, there are things that big PR agencies and departments do that often are thought of as being out of the reach of smaller teams. Well, so much of the time they're not. With a bit of tweaking, with a bit of efficiency savings, they can often be done by a small team, or even just, if you're on your own, by you too, without it taking over all the other things that you've been asked to do already. So I'm going to be covering that too. So that's all going to start from next week. And as I say, if you'd like to let me know more about what you want from this show, then go to the website, thepublicrelationspodcast.com, sign up to the newsletter, and you'll get all the details there. Right, let's move on to our first item this week, and about becoming an influencer, making your organization an influencer itself. Now, I find this really fascinating because the person I'm talking about is a person called Trini Woodall. And unlike many influencers who seem to create a brand of, looking disinterested and bored while wearing glamorous clothes in glamorous places around the world, Trini seems to have cornered the market as an accessible but still glamorous older woman who talks like a real person. And she does most of this on Instagram, not surprisingly, because it's the fashion platform after all. She does have a background in TV and marketing, and she's also married to someone who was one of the most successful people in PR and marketing over the years, which means she's got access to lots of other connections as well, combined with her many connections from before that. So you can see how she's got a lot of help, but you can also see things she's doing that we can replicate if we're trying to get across our organization in a more humane way. The moment it really hit me about her successful, why she was so successful and what impact she had, was my partner actually said to me, has Trini got back from India yet? And I replied, yeah, she got back yesterday. As if I was talking about a friend in the family. When an influencer becomes part of your family, they are good. So what can we learn about how she does it, and how can we apply this to our organizations? Number 1 is she lives the brand. I'm not saying that any organization has ever come up with a brand message or a mission statement that perhaps they maybe didn't really follow along with. in this modern age of PR, where we're trying to develop real human connections with people, we've got to live that brand. So in her particular case, she's talking about clothes and makeup, and she's really doing it. She's really trying this stuff out. She's developing makeup as a business as well, and she's talking about it. She's talking about the pitfalls. She's talking about the things that work, the things that don't. You can spot these fake influencers a mile off because they're all in these photogenic spots. And Trini mixes glamour, but then she does the great thing, which is the authenticity, which is what we can do as well with our organizations, instead of trying to claim to be 100% perfect all the time. So she makes it glamour like being at a glamorous wedding in India. With then the next shot would be her getting out the shower with her hair and makeup all over the place looking terrible. The other thing she does as well is that you see her trying to prop up her phone all the time, as if, there's no camera crew or anything like that there. So it feels authentic. So instead of, we were talking about this the other day, making a video of your organization where you're trying to make things look really glossy, don't. Make it authentic instead. So she lives the brand. If we can live that brand and demonstrate it on our videos, on our social media, that's a powerful message there. She also knows who she's marketing to. She's not aiming at Taylor Swift fans, but middle-aged women who still want to be stylish. It is aspirational, but accessible. And this is important because, as always, we need to know who we're trying to reach with our PR efforts. Is it people who are interested in charity? Is it people who are interested in the plumbing business? Is it people who are interested in legal affairs? It's about knowing who your market is and delivering the content that they want in an authentic way. So she teaches us that too. She clearly has a team making it as well. Now, she may hold the camera, but she clearly doesn't do all the editing and captioning. But just because she's got a team doesn't mean we need one. I think I've mentioned these before on Android. I made a video on my phone while I was away on holiday recently using a program called KindMaster. I've linked to that in the newsletter this week for the podcast. Also, there's a program called Descript.com, which is an amazing video and audio editor I have talked about before on Mac and PC. So these things really speed up the process. You do not need professional video and audio editing anymore to achieve this kind of stuff. So as I said, this is now we're going to focus on the future. Be clever, be really efficient with the way we do stuff, and we can kick out the kind of results she gets as well. When she records, she talks to us not like a presenter, but like she's recording a phone message in a hurry to a friend. Now, if you think about it, if you've seen her videos on Instagram, there's a huge psychological difference. It comes across in her tone and in her voice. There's no introduction. There's no glossy graphics. There's no end captions. It always looks like she's just holding the phone, as I said earlier. So it's that authenticity. So instead of walking into the office, setting up that shot where you're trying to talk to your chief executive or trying to talk to someone else that's maybe going to give a comment, or even doing it yourself, instead of sitting there and getting everything looking perfect, be authentic. Make it feel far more real. There's an interesting one, I think I've talked about this before, about the customer flow, the journey, particularly when I've talked about experiential marketing, is what is the next natural step for people when they come in contact with your social media, or if you're doing podcasting or videos or whatever it is that you're doing to help promote your organization. What is the next natural step? People are always wondering what this is. So if they're enthused, they want to do something more. Now, the next natural step with Trini is to go to one of her websites. Now, one is directly her shop, and another one is called Trini's Tribe, which sounds like, okay, well, I'm interested. I want to join the tribe. Now, when you arrive there, yes, it does indeed have a community section, but it's quite well hidden because the objective clearly is what you find there, which is a shop where you can buy things. So there's the call to action, is go and, express yourself more, join our tribe. But actually what you're going to get is a shop, because I know that is the customer flow. And finally, consistency. It's amazing, particularly for the podcasting world, which I've been involved quite a lot with and studied quite a lot, is often, even if you don't even have absolutely amazing content, simply being consistent can make you grow, because people form it as part of their diary for each week. So in the case of Trini, for example, you know that, for example, on a Saturday or a Friday, she will be doing a certain type of content. So when you wake up that morning, you start to think, okay, well, Trini always does this on that day. I wonder what she did this week. So it's very good. Consistency is a great lesson as well. If we can be doing that as well, delivering a particular message or a particular bit of advice or something about our organization on a particular day in a certain way, then we can start to break that up as well. And it also reduces this feeling of overwhelm, of just having too much information that we're putting out there, or, 1,000 tweets a week that make no sense, by having a consistent value delivery on a particular day of the week, that can really help. So there's 6 things that we can learn from Trini. I hope that helps. As I say, one of the problems with all this, as I was saying earlier, is that it's a lot of information to take in. So we will be trying to apply all this consistently in future. And if you want to be part of those projects where we work together on this stuff, head to the website, thepublicrelationspodcast.com, thepublicrelationspodcast.com, sign up to the newsletter, and I will have all the details for you there. William Shakespeare. Okay. Now, the moment I said that word, maybe you're thinking back to school days and you're thinking, oh gosh, this guy really did my head in. I couldn't understand a word he said. But one thing that we can't fool is that a guy living in the 1500s in Britain became world famous, and he's world famous today. Now, yes, you can say his plays were good, but there was a lot more to it than that. And I was in Stratford-upon-Avon last weekend, so I made a little 3-minute video on 6 of Shakespeare's PR techniques that I found out when I started doing a bit of research. And I also do a tour of Stratford-upon-Avon, some of the key points as well. So if you've never been there, then again, I got links on the website and, on the newsletter to that video. But to give you a bit of an idea, one of the first things he ever did, I couldn't decide how to describe this in a video, was, let's just say he wrote a romantic poem. It's a little bit more than that. That's one of the first things he did, and it actually continued to be one of his most popular works throughout his entire life. So he gave people what they wanted. He was good with the media. That's another thing. Okay, you didn't have TV or anything at the time, but the theatre critics loved him. Now, not only did they like his plays, but he also had a lot of influential friends, influencers, who were reaching out to these theatre critics as well, and also talking through their own networks. We know the importance of reaching out to influencers and also networking with our own PR now, and it was exactly the same then. He also knew how to touch us emotionally. So much of the stuff that people put out from organizations is so cold and dry, and he understood human emotion. That was something that we need to do as well. There were a few other things in there. It's all in the video. As I said, it's about 3 minutes long, and you can get that link in the newsletter this week. Let's have a look at diary dates. In fact, there's one diary date with 3 different days on it. The first one is, there's 3 of them to do with, one is to do with detectives, one is to do with goths, and the other is to do with stationery. Let's just cover them quickly. Sherlock Holmes Day is the 22nd of May. It's celebrating the fictional detective. Book publishers, fans of the series, crime podcasters, shows, detective quiz games will all be jumping on that day. Is there maybe something mysterious that people can solve about your organization, or something connected with the history of what you do? That's Sherlock Holmes Day on the 22nd. There'll be hashtags around the internet that you can find for that. World Goth Day. Is your organization into alternative fashion, subcultures, or inclusion? Maybe World Goth Day could be something that you want to get involved in. The goth subcultures remain very popular for years. If you don't know what goth is, it's sort of people dressed in Victorian outfits, a lot of black, a lot of contrasting colours with that sort of fantasy look. And also, in fact, actually a few days after the 22nd of May, on the 26th of May, many goths actually gather in a small town in the UK called Whitby, which is where the Dracula story was connected with as well. And there's a big festival. There's all kinds of different people within the kind of goth subculture that turn up there. And the final day on the 22nd of May, so the third day that's being celebrated that day, is World Stationery. Well, actually, it's World Stationery Week that is ending that day. God, some of these days are just incredible. But if there's hashtags to jump on, then sometimes they can be useful. I couldn't find out where this all came from. It doesn't exactly have a lot of sparkle to this particular day, but, maybe there's something to do with people writing or traditional ways of doing things using stationery instead of computer keyboards. Could be something that you could jump onto with your social media or talk about on that particular day. So all those 3 days on the 22nd of May, and there's more details about that again in the newsletter. Finally, I'm always up for a coffee, or actually more a cup of tea. I'm British. So where am I going to be? I'm going to be 30th of April. I'm going to be in Reykjavik in Iceland. In the 19th to 22nd of May, I'm going to be in Nice in France. I'm going to be in Porto in Portugal on the 3rd and 4th of June. And I'm going to be in Athens in early July. If you are around on one of those days, and do let me know. It would be absolutely wonderful to meet up with you. No agenda needed, as I always say. It is literally just, I'd love to find out what you think of the show, share ideas. If you're new in PR, if you're experienced in PR, doesn't really matter. There's so many things that I think we can talk about. Right, next time we got that bit of a change as to the way we approach things. And what I'm going to talk about is how you can develop an instant relationship with 1,500 people. It's going to sound like a long shot. And as I said, I'm going to aim high. I'm going to try and push our boundaries on what we think is possible, because it is amazing when you start pushing and you start experiment, the things that can actually turn out well. So I'm going to be looking at that in a bit more detail next week. I'm going to have a project for you to work along with me next week as well. And I hope you'll be able to join me for that. That's it for the moment. Have an absolutely wonderful week in your PR. Let me know how it goes. And I will speak to you next week when things really do start to ramp up a gear.